Beneath a storm-torn sky, a woman stands in black beside a child whose world has just ended. The rain spares no one except for the stranger watching from the shadows. His eyes shine silver, his presence bends the storm itself, and when he speaks her name, a name she never gave him, the world tilts toward something ancient and forbidden. Welcome to Vale Manor, where death was only the beginning, and love is the most dangerous curse of all. Before we descend into the storm, tell me, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what's the weather like on your side of the Vale? Are you wrapped in thunder, bathed in moonlight, or hiding from the rain like our story's beginning? Drop your answer in the comments, and let's see how many corners of the world are listening to the dark together. Now let's jump straight right in. Rain always had a way of muting the world, softening sound, color, even thought. That morning it fell in a steady veil, turning the headstones around me into smudges of grey and silver. My black umbrella shuddered against the wind as I held it above Liam's small head. His hand, sticky from the peppermint Mrs. Kersey had given him for bravery, clung tightly to mine. He didn't cry. 6 years old, standing between two fresh graves, and not a single tear. I wished he would. I wished I could. The pastor's words drifted away, half lost in the hiss of the rain. I looked down at Liam. His pale face was unreadable, too still for a child. The polished coffin between the wilting lilies looked wrong, too final, too clean for the warmth that once filled the Whitlock home. Can we go, Miss Elena? His voice was small, barely above the sound of the raindrops. Just a little longer, love, I whispered. We'll go home soon, and I'll make you cocoa. Home. The word stabbed like a knife. There would be no home, not the way it was before. The house would only echo now, every laugh replaced by silence. I tried to focus on the pastor's final blessing, but something else caught my attention, a man standing a few yards away under an ancient yew tree. He wasn't with the other mourners. He didn't carry an umbrella. The rain slid down around him but somehow didn't touch him. He stood tall, perfectly still, as if carved from the storm itself. His coat, charcoal wool, fit him with precise elegance, his gloved hands resting behind his back. There was an old-world quality about him, something from another century. When he lifted his head, his gaze met mine across the graves. For a heartbeat, everything else, the drizzle, the whisper of prayer, even the ache in my chest, vanished. His eyes were a strange shade, not grey, not blue, but a metallic color that seemed to shift like iron catching light. I looked away quickly, embarrassed. When I looked back, he hadn't moved. Do you know him? I asked one of the Whitlock's lawyers standing nearby. The man followed my gaze, frowned slightly, and shook his head. No idea. Probably an old acquaintance. But something in my gut said otherwise. As the last words were spoken and the mourners began to drift away, I helped Liam down the muddy path toward the waiting cars. The world felt too quiet. We were almost at the gate when two men in dark suits stopped me, Whitlock and Brandt, the family lawyers. They handed me a sealed envelope, offering their condolences. I slipped it into my coat pocket, too tired to think about what new burden it might contain. When I stepped through the gate, the man from under the yew was there. So close I nearly walked into him. Miss Ward, he said, his voice low and clear, touched with an accent I couldn't place. Or do you prefer Miss Elena? My fingers tightened around Liam's hand. How do you know my name? He tilted his head slightly. Your employers spoke of you often. His gaze softened as it fell on the boy. And this must be Liam. Liam shrank a little behind me. We don't know you, I said firmly. I am Lord Adrian Vale. He extended a hand that I ignored. Executor of certain family matters. The name rang like a struck bell, familiar, yet not. He continued calmly, as of this morning, I am the boy's guardian and closest living relative. That's impossible, I said. The Whitlocks had no living family. His lips curved, faintly amused. It seems I am the exception. He reached inside his coat and withdrew a folded document, sealed and stamped with the lawyer's crest. When I glanced at the signature, my stomach dropped. It was real. I have arrangements prepared, he said smoothly. A car is waiting. The boy will be safe at my residence. Safe? I echoed, my voice trembling. You think I'll just hand him over to a stranger in the rain? He regarded me with a patience that made me angrier. The will was signed last winter, witnessed by you, if I am not mistaken. And then I remembered that day, the papers, the quiet laughter, the Whitlocks joking about boring legal nonsense. I'd signed as witness without reading the fine print. Why you? I demanded. They never mentioned you. He hesitated, then said softly, because some bonds are older than words. Liam tugged at my sleeve. Are you my uncle? Adrian's gaze moved to him, gentle, almost wistful. Something like that. I stepped between them. He's not going anywhere with you. Not without a hearing. There will be no need for that, Adrian said, his tone still courteous but edged with steel. The law is clear. Then I'll challenge it, I said. He inclined his head, as if impressed. You're brave, Miss Ward. I admire that. I turned, ready to walk away, but before I could move, the air shifted. The rain faltered midair for half a second. A car pulled up beside us, sleek, black, windows tinted. Adrian opened the door. Please, he said quietly. Let's not argue here. I'm not going anywhere with you. Then forgive me, he murmured, and everything blurred. I don't remember how he moved, only that one moment I was standing in the rain, and the next, Liam and I were inside the car, doors shut, locks clicked. My heart slammed against my ribs. Let us out, I cried, fumbling for the handle. Adrian reached across and caught my wrist, not painfully, but firmly. I intend no harm, he said. But we cannot argue curbside. Release me. His hand was warm. Too warm. The contact sent a spark up my arm that made my breath catch. I jerked free and glared at him. You can't just kidnap people. He met my eyes. Miss Ward, I've lived long enough to know the difference between protection and abduction. You may not believe it now, but I mean only the first. The driver pulled away from the curb. Liam was silent beside me, eyes wide. Where are you taking us? I demanded. To my home, Adrian said simply. It's the safest place for him. For him, I echoed. What about me? He glanced out the window. That depends on how much you resist. The drive took us out of the city, into hills shrouded in mist. Rain traced patterns down the glass, and my reflection trembled in the window like a ghost. Liam leaned against my side, drifting into exhausted sleep. I kept one arm around him and one eye on Adrian Vale. He sat opposite us, calm as stone, hands clasped, eyes half closed, as if he could feel the tension but chose not to acknowledge it. I finally spoke. You've made a mistake. The Whitlocks wouldn't have chosen you. He opened his eyes. And yet they did. Then why didn't they ever mention you? He smiled faintly. Would you have believed them if they had told you what I am? I frowned. What are you, exactly? A very rich kidnapper? He chuckled softly. Nothing so ordinary. The sound unnerved me, it was warm. And yet, the way his gaze lingered on the passing trees made me think he was seeing things older than I could imagine. Tell me, I said. Why does the rain never touch you? His eyes met mine, the color shifting with the light. Because it remembers me. I stared. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I fell silent, half afraid he would explain. After a while, I noticed the road curving upward, through a dense forest. Lanterns flickered along the edges, as if lighting the way for us alone. The sky had deepened to violet, the air filled with the smell of wet earth. When the car finally stopped, I caught my breath. Before us rose Vale Manor, a vast, stone mansion crouched beneath the storm. Its windows glowed faintly gold, and ivy climbed the walls like veins. Adrian opened the door and stepped out first, offering his hand. Careful. The steps are slick. I ignored the gesture and lifted Liam out myself. The moment my shoes touched the ground, I felt it, the hush, the weight of centuries pressing down. Inside, the warmth was shocking. Fires burned in deep hearths, and lamps cast a honey glow on the polished floors. A woman in grey, his housekeeper, I assumed, appeared and curtsied. Mrs. Havers, Adrian said. Prepare a room for the boy. Yes, my lord. Her voice trembled slightly, though she smiled at Liam. I'm not letting him out of my sight, I said. Adrian turned to me, one brow lifting. He will be unpacking pajamas, not plotting treason. You may rest a moment. I'll rest when I know he's safe. His eyes softened. Then come. See for yourself. He led us up a grand staircase, our footsteps echoing. At the top, Mrs. Havers opened a door to a small but warm bedroom, soft blankets, a fire already lit, and a stuffed bear waiting on the pillow. Liam's tired face brightened just a little. It's nice, he whispered. I knelt to his height. You'll stay here only tonight. Tomorrow, we'll sort everything out, all right? He nodded sleepily. Adrian lingered by the door. He'll be safe, he said quietly. I'll be the judge of that. When Liam finally fell asleep, I stepped into the hall and faced Adrian fully. Now talk. He studied me for a moment. Would you believe me if I said I loved his parents? That they sought me out, not the other way around? Why would they? Because they learned a truth most mortals never do, that blood remembers. Even across centuries. I folded my arms. You keep saying strange things. Stop speaking in riddles. He hesitated. The Whitlocks were part of my lineage. Distant, yes. But the connection was there. They traced it, they found me, and they asked that I protect what remains of our bloodline. So you're saying Liam is your cousin? Nephew? Something like that, he said softly. And you expect me to believe that? I expect you to see what's in front of you. He stepped closer. Not threateningly, just close enough that I could feel the shift in the air between us. His presence was unsettling, yet I couldn't deny the strange calm it brought. You don't breathe, I blurted. He blinked, startled. I do, he said, though the denial came too smoothly. I shook my head. No. I've been watching. You haven't since we left the cemetery. His gaze dropped, almost ashamed. Then you already know, don't you? I don't want to know, I whispered. But you do. The silence stretched. The firelight flickered across his face, painting it in gold and shadow. For the first time, I saw something vulnerable in him, a weariness too deep for any mortal man. Finally, he spoke. You may believe I'm your enemy, but I swore to protect the boy with my life. If that means protecting you as well, so be it. Protect us from what? He looked toward the darkened window. From those who would see him destroyed before he grows into what he was born to be. A chill rippled through me. You're insane. Perhaps, he murmured. But I'm also right. I took a step back. Tomorrow, we're leaving. I don't care what the will says. He didn't argue. He only nodded once, the gesture almost sad. Then stay the night. Decide in the morning. If you still wish to go, I'll take you myself. I didn't trust him. But exhaustion had dulled every edge of fear. Fine, I said. One night. Good. His tone softened. Mrs. Havers will show you your room. When she led me down the corridor, I glanced back. Adrian still stood there, one hand resting lightly on the banister, eyes glinting like stormlight. He looked like a man guarding something precious and carrying the weight of it alone. That night, I couldn't sleep. The manor creaked like it remembered things best forgotten. I rose and went to the window. Far below, in the garden drowned in silver rain, I saw him, Adrian Vale, walking among the cypresses, head tilted toward the sky. The rain didn't touch him. I told myself I was only watching to make sure he wasn't doing anything strange. But when he stopped and looked up at the window, as if he felt my gaze, I couldn't move. For one impossible moment, our eyes met across the distance. The world went utterly still. Then he turned away, vanishing into the mist. I stayed at the window long after he disappeared, my hand pressed to the cold glass, my heart beating far too fast for someone who was supposed to be afraid. Morning crept into the room like a timid guest, grey and cold. For a few seconds I forgot where I was. The unfamiliar scent of polished wood and rosemary reminded me. Vale Manor. A place that felt half dream, half warning. I dressed quietly so I wouldn't wake Liam. Someone had folded my clothes, pressed them, and arranged my brush beside a silver mirror. The efficiency was unsettling. When I stepped into the corridor, the air smelled faintly of rain and smoke from distant fires. Portraits lined the walls, faces so lifelike their painted eyes followed me. A little brass plate under each frame bore the same surname, Vale. One face stopped me. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. Adrian's features, only younger, dressed in Regency clothing, a slight smile on his lips. Beneath the portrait the inscription read Adrian Vale, 1823. I ran a hand across the plate. The metal felt newly polished. Either it was an ancestor who shared his name or time moved differently in this house. "Good morning, Miss Ward." Mrs. Havers appeared silently behind me, holding a tray of tea and bread. "His lordship requests your company in the breakfast room." "Is Liam awake?" "Already dressed. The young master is eating. He seems quite at ease." I followed her through winding hallways until we reached a glass-roofed conservatory flooded with weak winter light. Liam sat at a round table, legs swinging, mouth sticky with berry jam. He grinned when he saw me. "Miss Elena, they have pancakes. With blackberries." Relief washed through me. At least he could still smile. I kissed the top of his head. "That looks wonderful, sweetheart." Across the table, Adrian rose. Morning light didn't diminish him, it refined him. He wore a waistcoat the color of ash, cuffs fastened with silver studs shaped like wings. "Good morning," he said, voice calm, but something in his gaze studied me too closely, as if counting the hours I'd slept. "Good morning," I managed. I took the seat opposite him, pretending not to notice how my pulse quickened. He poured coffee, sliding a cup toward me. "You must be hungry." I ignored the cup. "I'd rather know when we can return to the city." Liam's fork paused mid-air. "We're leaving." "Not yet," Adrian said gently. "There are things we must discuss first." I shot him a warning look. "Privately." The boy's eyes lit up. "Can I, Miss Elena?" "Go on," I said softly. "I'll be right here when you're done." When they left, silence filled the room, warm and heavy as the sunlight pooling on the floor. "You don't waste time," Adrian said. "I want to understand what you intend to do with that child." "Protect him." "From what?" "You keep saying he's in danger, but you never say from whom." He leaned back, fingers steepled. "There are families older than nations, Miss Ward. We abide by rules the modern world has forgotten. Liam's parents defied those rules. Their deaths were not an accident." A chill slid down my spine. "You expect me to believe someone killed them because of you?" "Because of what he is," Adrian corrected. I swallowed hard. "He's a boy. He is also heir to something ancient." His tone stayed measured, almost tender. "When I said we shared blood, I meant it literally." The air seemed to thin. "You mean you're related?" "In a sense." His eyes glimmered, unreadable. "The Whitlocks carried a trace of my line. They found me after centuries of silence and asked that I remain hidden until necessary. Now necessity has come." "Your line," I repeated slowly. "You talk as though you've been alive long enough to have one." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Long enough." I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but nothing about the man before me felt like a joke. His stillness, the ageless calm, even the way shadows bent subtly toward him, it all spoke of something older than reason. "Tell me what you are," I said. He looked out toward the misty garden. "Names change. My kind have been saints and monsters in equal measure. These days, people prefer legends. Legends that drink blood." He didn't deny it. "Legends that endure." For a moment, fear rooted me to the chair. He turned back, studying my face, and his expression softened. "I don't feed on the innocent, if that's what you fear. Nor on children. I survive as quietly as possible. Your employers knew. They trusted me." "You're telling me they trusted a vampire with their son?" "With their son's future," he corrected. "There is a difference." I pushed back my chair. "You're mad." "Perhaps. But madness can keep a child alive when reason cannot." I moved toward the door, but his voice stopped me. "If you take him away now, they will find you before sunset." I turned. "Who?" "The council that governs our kind. They forbid mortal heirs. Liam's existence threatens them." I wanted to dismiss it, to call it another layer of his delusion, yet something in his tone, solemn, exhausted, felt true. And you expect me to trust you to fight them? I expect nothing. But whether you stay or go, they will come. He rose slowly, and the light shifted, tracing silver across his face. At least here, you have me. His words frightened me more than the threat. I could hear sincerity in them, quiet, steady, ancient. The kind that can't be faked. He walked to the door, holding it open for me. Come. See the manor. You deserve to know where you are. I followed out of some mix of curiosity and disbelief. The corridors branched like veins, leading to a library that could have swallowed my old cottage whole. Shelves rose to a vaulted ceiling, ladders gliding silently on rails. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, scattering colors across the floor like fragments of another world. Adrian paused beside a table covered in old maps and letters. Your employers spent many evenings here. They hoped Liam might grow up among stories rather than sorrow. They must have loved him very much, I said. They did. He brushed dust from one of the papers, a faint smile ghosting his mouth. Enough to trust the impossible. I studied him, unsure whether to feel anger or pity. And you? Do you love him? His gaze flicked to mine, sudden and unguarded. More than I have allowed myself to love anything in a very long time. The honesty in his voice startled me. Before I could reply, a small hand slipped into mine. Liam had returned, cheeks flushed from the cold, excitement shining in his eyes. Miss Elena, there's a white pony named Starfire. Can we stay and ride tomorrow? I looked at Adrian. He said nothing, only waited, as if the answer mattered more to him than to the boy. I knelt to Liam's level. We'll see, darling. When I straightened, Adrian's expression was unreadable, yet there was warmth there, something fragile that didn't belong on the face of a creature who claimed to be immortal. Mrs. Havers appeared in the doorway. Lunch is ready, my lord. Adrian nodded, then turned to me. After we eat, perhaps you'll allow me to show you the gardens. They were designed for sunlight, though I rarely enjoy them. Why invite me, then? Because you remind me that sunlight still exists. The words caught me off guard. I wanted to answer lightly, but my throat closed. Instead I nodded and followed them toward the dining hall, the weight of new knowledge pressing around me like the manor's endless walls. Outside, the storm had lifted. Light spilled through high windows, fragile but real, touching everything it could except him. Even in daylight, his shadow seemed deeper than the rest. And yet, for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself hoping he was right, that somewhere within that shadow was a place where Liam and I might still be safe. By the second evening I had stopped pretending Vale Manor was ordinary. Every hour revealed something new, a corridor that wasn't there before, candles that flared to life without touch, doors that opened when I thought of them. The house breathed, softly but always in rhythm with its master. Liam adjusted faster than I did. Children have a gift for accepting magic when adults demand reason. He explored every corner, chatting happily with Mrs. Havers, who seemed relieved to have laughter in the halls again. I watched him chase dust motes through a sunbeam and wondered if he could already feel what Adrian claimed pulsed inside him. Adrian appeared at dusk, as he always did, soundless on the marble floor. "Walk with me," he said. It wasn't quite a command, more like a question wrapped in certainty. We followed a stone path through the rear gardens. The last of the daylight spilled over ivy and bronze fountains shaped like angels. His coat brushed the hedge as he walked beside me. "You dislike this place," he observed. "It feels like a museum that forgot its visitors," I said. He smiled faintly. "It has been waiting for heirs who never came. Now one has." I stopped. "You mean Liam?" "Yes. He carries a trace of what I am." He looked toward the horizon where the sun bled into cloud. "Blood remembers its maker, even when centuries pass." I crossed my arms. "You talk about blood as if it has a will." "It does. Every living thing does. Yours sings when you are angry." His tone made my cheeks warm, so I looked away. "Don't talk like that. I meant no insult." His voice softened. "I forget how words sound to mortal ears." We walked in silence until we reached a small glass pavilion. Inside, lanterns glowed like captured stars. He gestured for me to sit on a stone bench. "You deserve to know the rest." I hesitated, but Saturday, then tell me plainly. What is he? Half of me, half of what you are. That balance is dangerous. The council forbids it because they fear what such a child could become. Daylight made flesh, maybe the end of our kind. He's a little boy, I said sharply. He wants stories and pancakes, not power. That is why he needs you. His eyes caught the lamplight, turning silver. You keep him human. And you? I asked before I could stop myself. His expression changed, gentler now. You ask questions like the woman I used to befriend long ago. She was a teacher too. What happened to her? She grew old. I didn't. His voice carried no bitterness, only fact. I wanted to hate him for that calm, yet something inside me ached for the loneliness behind it. You must miss her. I miss the sound of her heartbeat more than her words, he admitted quietly. It reminded me that time still moved. A chill breeze drifted through the glass panes. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then I said, if the council comes, what will they do? They'll demand he be surrendered. Or destroyed. I rose, heart hammering. You can't let that happen. No, he said, standing too. That is why I brought you here. You see danger where I might see duty. I need that balance. The confession disarmed me. You trust me that much? I must. His hand hovered near mine, not touching. You are the only one who could make me doubt my instincts. I wanted to ask what that meant, but he turned away, gaze fixed on the fading sky. The setting sun brushed his face in gold. It should have burned him. Instead, the light dimmed, like the world bent to spare him. The sight left me breathless. Come, he said at last. Liam will be waiting. We returned through the corridor that smelled faintly of cedar. From somewhere ahead came the sound of laughter. Liam sat on the grand staircase with Mrs. Havers, building towers from small carved blocks. He looked up and beamed. Miss Elena, Adrian, look what I made. It's the manor. He had copied the windows, even the twin spires. I crouched beside him. That's wonderful, darling. Adrian knelt too, his shadow folding over both of us. You have a good eye, he said. Architects must begin young. Liam studied him solemnly. You talk funny. So I've been told. Adrian's mouth curved slightly. He reached to adjust one of the blocks. The tower steadied as if obeying his will. Liam blinked. How did you do that? Adrian met my gaze before answering. Old habit. Then to the boy, you try. Liam's brow furrowed in concentration. The upper block shivered, then settled into place. Mrs. Havers gasped softly. I felt the blood drain from my face. Enough for today, Adrian said gently, guiding Liam's hand down. It's time for supper. As they walked ahead, I whispered to Mrs. Havers, did you see that? The housekeeper crossed herself. I saw nothing, miss. Best to see nothing. Later, when Liam had eaten and gone to bed, I found Adrian in the library, staring into the fire. The orange light painted his profile, sharp and beautiful as carved stone. You shouldn't encourage him, I said quietly. He needs to understand himself. He needs normality. He turned. You call what waits outside these walls normal? I call it unprepared. I stepped closer, anger and fear tangling in my chest. He's 6 years old. And already stronger than you know. His gaze softened. I will teach him restraint. You will teach him kindness. Between us, perhaps he will survive. Something in the way he said between us made my throat tighten. The space between us felt charged, like the moment before thunder. Why me? I whispered. Why do you care what I teach him? He looked down at the fire. Because when you speak to him, I remember what warmth feels like. I had no answer. The flames crackled, shadows moved across his face, softening it. For a second he seemed almost human, just a man worn by grief and duty. I don't know if I can trust you, I said at last. Then stay until you can decide. He stood, and for once the movement was slow, deliberate, almost hesitant. But whatever you believe, don't leave tonight. The woods are not kind after dark. He left me there with the firelight and the echo of his voice. I should have been terrified. Instead, I sat for a long time, watching the flames dance, feeling the strange calm his words left behind. When I finally returned to my room, the corridor was dim. Through the window I saw the moon rising over the garden. A lone figure moved among the cypresses, tall, unhurried, his coat trailing like smoke. He paused, looking up toward my window. Even from that distance I could feel the connection between us, thin as a thread but unbreakable. I didn't wave. I didn't hide either. We simply looked at each other until the wind carried the curtain across the glass, and he was gone. Behind me, the fire in the hearth flickered blue for an instant, then steadied. Somewhere deeper in the house, a bell chimed once, like a heartbeat. I told myself it was only the clock. But when I lay down, the echo of that single note lingered inside me, half fear, half longing, and I knew that whatever world I thought I belonged to, I had already stepped beyond its edge. The storm had passed, but Vale Manor still wore its sorrow like a veil. Rainwater clung to the ivy curling over the stone, and mist coiled along the corridors as though the air itself refused to leave. Elena Ward awoke before dawn to the echo of soft footsteps, Liam's. Again. She followed the sound through the dim corridor, her nightdress brushing the cold banister. The child's small figure moved with eerie calm, barefoot and silent, his eyes half-lidded as if he were walking through someone else's dream. "Liam," she whispered, catching his shoulder. His skin was cold as marble. "Wake up, darling, please." He murmured something in a language she didn't know. The syllables were smooth, melodic, and ancient, like the rustling of dry leaves in a tomb. When his eyes finally opened, they glimmered faintly, not blue, but silver in the dark. "Elena." His voice trembled. He was calling me again. Who was? The man in the walls. A chill stole through her spine. She carried him back to his room and stayed until his breathing steadied. When dawn touched the windows, she saw that every mirror had been covered with heavy cloths. Only her reflection in the glass remained pale, frightened, and uncertain if she was the intruder or the prisoner. Later that morning, curiosity and dread drove her into the portrait gallery. Rows of eyes followed her from gilded frames, lords and ladies of the Vale line, their faces drawn with exquisite precision. Yet one figure appeared again and again, unchanged, century to century. Lord Adrian Vale. In one painting he stood in a cavalier's coat, his hair longer, the eyes the same argent hue. In another, a black cravat and waistcoat. In the next, a 19th-century military uniform, expression identical. No painter could replicate such likeness without the same model across hundreds of years. Her pulse quickened. She traced his painted face, fingertips trembling. "Curiosity is a dangerous tutor, Miss Ward." Adrian's voice emerged from behind her, calm and silken. She turned, heart thudding. He stood in the doorway, hands folded behind his back, untouched by dust or light. "These are my ancestors," he said. "A tiresome parade of vanity. But they all look like you." A pause, the faintest curve at the corner of his mouth. "So I've been told. Perhaps my family valued consistency." She met his gaze. Or perhaps the artist never changed because he still lives. Something flickered in his expression, amusement, warning, maybe pride. "Be careful what truths you chase, Miss Ward. Some have teeth." He departed before she could answer. The echo of his steps faded into the walls, and only then did she realize there were no windows in the gallery. Only portraits, and silence that listened. That night, the whispers returned. Elena woke to the sound of distant murmuring, too soft to be speech. She lit a candle and crossed the corridor. The flame trembled as though afraid. From behind the paneling came a rhythmic scrape, like fingers dragging along wood. "Who's there?" The whisper ceased. Then, faintly, a voice hoarse and urgent spoke through the wall. "He's not the only one who wants the child." The candle guttered out. She stumbled backward, heart hammering, until she collided with something solid. Adrian caught her arms before she fell, his face an unreadable mask in the dark. "What did you hear?" Someone spoke through the wall. He closed his eyes briefly, as if fighting an old exhaustion. "This house remembers its enemies. Do not answer when it calls." His fingers lingered on her wrists, colder than the air. "You and the boy are safe while you remain within these walls." But safety, he added softly, is a fragile illusion. And then he was gone again, like smoke through the keyhole. As she stood alone, Elena realized with slow horror that the house had grown utterly still, except for one sound, the low heartbeat in the walls, steady as her own. The following night, Adrian summoned her to the great hall. The fireplace blazed, though no warmth reached her. The staff had vanished, only the echo of her footsteps joined hers as she entered. He stood by the hearth, his silhouette thrown in fractured gold light. On the table before him lay parchment sealed with black wax, its edges scorched. "Sit, Miss Ward." She obeyed, though her instincts screamed otherwise. "These," he said, breaking the seal, "are from the Council of Blood. The ancient order that governs my kind." Elena's breath caught. There was no longer any pretense. "Your kind?" He met her eyes. "You've known since the night you saw what I drink. It is not wine. It is what sustains me." "Blood," she whispered. He inclined his head, not ashamed, not proud, merely stating fact. "I am bound to them by oath, by centuries of law. But the boy, Liam, he changes everything." The candlelight danced in his eyes, silver to crimson. "The council forbids mortal offspring. To them, he is an abomination, a stain on both worlds. They will come for him, to destroy or claim him. And they will not stop." Elena rose, fury and fear warring in her chest. "Then take him away. Hide him somewhere safe." Adrian's voice sharpened like a blade. "There is no safe place for what he is. He is the bridge, my blood, her humanity. The council sees prophecy in him, something that could end them." Her voice broke. "So what do you plan to do?" He looked at her for a long moment, too long. "Protect him. Even if it means breaking every law my kind ever wrote." Hours later, the manor held its breath. Wind clawed at the shutters, lightning sketched the outline of the mountains. Adrian stood on the balcony, coat whipping in the gale. Elena found him there, his gaze fixed on the black horizon. "You should rest," she said. "I do not sleep," he murmured. "Not well, not anymore. Because of Liam? Because of you." The words froze her. "Me. When you arrived, you carried the scent of the living world, sunlight, fear, defiance. You reminded me of what I had forgotten." He turned toward her then, eyes catching the stormlight. "I have not touched a mortal in 100 years. Until you." Her pulse throbbed in her throat. "And what did that change?" "Everything." He stepped closer, not touching her but close enough that the air itself seemed to bend between them. "I told myself I would protect the boy. But now I find myself protecting you from me." Elena met his gaze, searching for the monster in the man. "If you mean to frighten me, Lord Vale, you'll have to try harder. I've seen what you fight for." He laughed softly, a sound both sorrowful and delighted. "Bravery or madness, Miss Ward, I cannot tell." A crash split the air, the sound of shattering glass. Both turned. In the hall below, shadows flickered like living things. Adrian blurred, one moment beside her, the next already at the stairs. She followed, clutching a candelabrum. A shape moved through the darkness, black cloak whipping, eyes burning red. A voice hissed, "The council demands the child." Adrian struck faster than thought, the two figures clashing with a crack like thunder. Their movements were too swift for mortal sight, shadows tearing at shadows. Elena's gaze darted to the stairwell. Liam stood there, trembling. The intruder lunged toward him, breaking from Adrian's grasp. "Liam." Without thinking, Elena seized a silver candlestick and hurled it. The metal struck the creature's face, searing through skin like acid. It screamed, clawing at its melting flesh, before Adrian was upon it again, driving it back into the dark. Silence fell. The stench of burnt air lingered. Adrian turned toward her, a deep gash running across his chest, dark fluid seeping through his shirt. His voice came rough, reverent. "You struck a council emissary. Do you know what that means?" "I saved your ward," she said, trembling but defiant. He took a step closer, then another, his control visibly fracturing. The scent of her blood, she'd cut her palm, filled the air between them. "You should not bleed before me," he whispered. "Not when I'm like this." She didn't move. "Then take it." His breath hitched, the predator warring with the man. You don't know what you're offering. I know you're dying. For a heartbeat, silence, then he moved. His hand cupped the back of her neck, gentle despite the hunger trembling through him. His lips brushed her wrist. Forgive me, he breathed. Then the bite, sharp, intimate, unbearably slow. Pain flared, then a strange, drowning warmth. The room dimmed, her heart raced. For a moment she swore she could feel what he felt, hunger, grief, centuries of loneliness spilling into her veins. When he pulled back, his eyes were no longer silver but storm-dark, his wound already closing. Elena swayed, dizzy. You. He caught her before she fell. I took only what I needed. But now, he said hoarsely, you are bound to me. Lightning split the window behind them. Their faces were inches apart, his voice a whisper of regret and need. You asked what changed, he murmured. Now you carry the answer in your blood. Outside, thunder rolled like distant drums, the herald of war between the living and the eternal. Inside, two hearts, one mortal, one cursed, began to beat in the same rhythm. And in the room above, Liam dreamed again, but this time, he was not alone. In his sleep, the child whispered in that same ancient tongue, and somewhere deep within Vale Manor's walls, something old awakened and listened. The manor did not sleep after the attack. The servants moved silently through the ruined hall, sweeping up shards of broken glass and mopping away the streaks of blood that shimmered like black mercury in the candlelight. The air hung thick with burnt iron and dread. Somewhere above, the storm resumed, rain drumming against the roof like the slow beating of an unending heart. Elena sat by the fire in the library, a wool blanket around her shoulders, her wounded wrist throbbing beneath the bandage. The flames wavered, as if wary of her presence. She could still feel the echo of his fangs, pain turning to heat, fear into a strange and guilty ache. Her blood pulsed differently now, as though responding to something unseen, something alive within her. When Adrian entered, she didn't turn. She heard him by the silence that followed, how even the air held itself still when he was near. His steps were noiseless, yet the temperature seemed to dip wherever he passed. You should be resting, he said. I couldn't. Her voice came low. Neither could you. He stopped beside her, hands clasped behind his back. The firelight painted him in tones of gold and shadow. The council will not stop at one emissary. That was merely a warning. And you? She looked up at him finally. Do you still call what happened between us a warning? His expression faltered, just slightly. It was necessity. It didn't feel like that. Then what did it feel like? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Like drowning, but not in fear. He said nothing, but his eyes softened, the old storm within them dimming to sorrow. Then he turned away. You risked your life for the boy. That act binds you to us more than blood ever could. She rose, the blanket falling from her shoulders. I didn't do it for you. No, he said, facing the fire, but you did it because of me. For a long moment they stood there, the air between them taut with unspoken things. Then Adrian staggered, just slightly, but enough for her to see it. The wound on his chest had reopened, dark against the pale linen. You're bleeding again. It will pass. Sit down, she ordered, surprising even herself. Now. His brows lifted, but he obeyed. She found a basin, clean cloths, and knelt before him. As she pressed the cloth to the wound, the scent of him, cold earth, rain, and something older wrapped around her. He flinched at her touch. You shouldn't. Be quiet. Her hands were steady, though her pulse thundered. His skin was cooler than stone, yet beneath it she could feel faint tremors, the echo of a heartbeat long silenced. When she looked up, his eyes were fixed on her with a hunger that wasn't only for blood. You're fearless, he said softly. I'm terrified, she answered. But I stay. He exhaled, almost human in that sound. You shouldn't have let me drink from you. Would you rather I let you die? Death and I are old acquaintances, Miss Ward. You don't yet understand what it means to be part of me. She drew back, meeting his gaze. Then teach me. Something inside him cracked. He caught her wrist, gently, reverently, and lifted her hand to his lips. His fangs brushed her pulse, not piercing this time, but tracing its rhythm. This is not a path for mortals, he whispered. It ends in darkness. And yet, she said, her voice trembling but resolute, I see the dark and still reach for you. For a heartbeat, an impossible, suspended moment, he leaned closer. Then, with a visible effort, he released her and rose. I will not take more, he said. Not from you. Then you'll starve, she replied. He turned, and the ghost of a smile touched his lips. I have starved for centuries. What is one more night? When he left, the shadows seemed to follow him, curling at his heels like loyal hounds. Elena sat alone, staring into the fire. She thought of Liam, sleeping upstairs, and of the storm that waited beyond the hills. The world she had known, warm, rational, mortal, was gone. In its place stood a mansion of ghosts, a man made of night, and a bond sealed in blood. She pressed her wrist to her chest, feeling the pulse against the faint ache of his bite, and realized with dread clarity that she would never be the same again. The next morning broke grey and cold. Mist rolled off the moors, swallowing the grounds of Vale Manor. The servants moved quietly, eyes lowered, as though they too sensed the shift in the air. Elena found Liam in the music room, playing a few hesitant notes on the old piano. The sound was uneven but hauntingly sweet. When he saw her, he smiled, yet something in his gaze had changed. His irises shimmered faintly, sunlight caught in dew. Do you remember what happened last night? She asked. He frowned. I dreamt of fire and wings. Of people whispering my name. And then I saw you and Lord Vale fighting monsters. You were dreaming, she said, though her own voice lacked conviction. He touched the piano keys again, and the air in the room seemed to vibrate. The candles flickered though there was no wind. She froze. Liam, what did you just do? I don't know, he whispered. It just happens now. Before she could respond, Adrian entered. His gaze swept the boy with careful calculation. The awakening has begun. What do you mean? Elena demanded. He carries both bloodlines. Yours, mortal compassion. Mine, immortal power. The council fears that combination more than death itself. His eyes lifted to hers. They will not stop. And we have little time left before they come again. Outside, thunder rolled in agreement. Days passed in uneasy quiet. The manor became a fortress. Windows were sealed, doors barred, and strange symbols appeared carved into the lintels, wards of ancient design. Adrian's servants moved like phantoms, obeying without words. Even the air seemed to hum with tension. Elena spent her hours between lessons with Liam and the endless watch for danger. But something else grew inside her too, a change she could neither name nor deny. She moved faster, healed quicker. The cut on her wrist had closed completely, leaving only a faint, silvery scar. And sometimes, when she stood too close to Adrian, she could sense his thoughts, not words, but echoes of emotion, hunger, sorrow, an ache centuries deep. That evening, she found him in the east corridor, standing before a shrouded mirror. He had drawn back the cloth, revealing the glass. His reflection, absent, as always, made the room seem emptier than death. You shouldn't torment yourself, she said gently. He didn't turn. Do you know what I miss most about being human? What? Wait. He touched the glass, fingers passing through the empty space where his reflection should be. The world passes through me now. Even time refuses to carry my shadow. Elena stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. You're not hollow. I've seen too much proof. He gave a bitter smile. You are kind, Miss Ward. But I fear kindness is just another form of blindness. Then call me blind, she said. But I see you. At that, he turned fully to face her. Their eyes locked. The room felt too small, the air too still. You should not say such things, he murmured. Why? Because I may believe you. He stepped closer, and she didn't move away. The space between them shrank until she could feel the cold radiating off his skin. She raised a hand, touching his chest. Beneath her palm, faint tremors pulsed, life that had no right to exist, yet did. You said you couldn't feel the world, she whispered. Can you feel this? He closed his eyes. Too much. The silence broke with the softest sound, his breath catching. Then his hand rose, fingers brushing her cheek, tracing the line of her jaw with almost reverent restraint. "Elena," he said, her name low and dangerous, "you are tempting something that does not know mercy. Then let it be tempted." The words were her undoing. His mouth met hers in a collision of hunger and restraint, ice and flame. The kiss was not gentle, it was a confession, a century's worth of denial turned to desperate need. She tasted blood and sweetness and the ache of something eternal. When he broke away, his eyes were dark, almost black. "You've become part of us now," he whispered. "Do you feel it?" She nodded, trembling. "Yes." "Then you understand why I must keep away." But he didn't move. Neither did she. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the great hall below. For a moment they stood locked in that flash, man and monster, savior and sinner, unable to decide which was which. Later, in the still hours before dawn, Elena awoke to distant cries. She ran through the corridors to Liam's room. The boy sat upright in bed, eyes wide, the air around him shimmering faintly. "Liam," she gasped. "What's happening?" He lifted his hands. The light that poured from them was soft at first, then blinding, white gold, pure and impossible. The curtains fluttered though the windows were closed. Every candle in the manor flared to life at once. Adrian burst into the room, his expression one of awe and fear. "It's begun," he said. "What is this?" Elena cried. "His blood," Adrian said, voice low, reverent. "The mortal light and immortal darkness meeting at last." Liam's eyes glowed like twin suns. "They're coming," he whispered. "The ones from your dreams." Elena turned to Adrian. "What does he mean?" "The council," he said grimly. "They know he's awakened." For a moment, all three stood in the eerie radiance of the child's power. Then Liam's body sagged, and the light vanished, plunging the room back into shadow. Adrian caught him before he fell. "He'll live," he murmured. "But his awakening will draw them like wolves to blood." Elena touched Liam's hair, tears burning her eyes. "Then let them come." Adrian looked at her, this mortal woman who had bled for him, defied him, kissed him despite her terror. There was pride in his gaze now, and something gentler. "You've changed, Miss Ward," he said softly. "So have you," she answered. "You just haven't admitted it yet." For once, he didn't argue. He carried Liam back to bed and laid him down gently. Then he turned to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. "Rest while you can," he said. "Before dawn, we plan. By nightfall, we fight." Elena lingered at the doorway, watching him as the first grey light of morning crept through the storm clouds. He stood there like a sentinel of another age, a creature of myth waiting for a future he didn't believe in. And yet, beneath the cold and the curse, she thought she saw something flicker in him, something perilously close to hope. That morning, as the sun struggled to rise, Vale Manor breathed again. The wards shimmered faintly, sealing the household against what was coming. In the silence between storms, Elena felt the pulse of something vast and inevitable: love, death, and the fragile bridge that connected them all. She looked out across the moors, where the mist rolled like a living sea, and whispered to herself. They feared monsters. But maybe monsters were all that ever kept the dark at bay. Night fell like a blade across Vale Manor. The air itself felt bruised, heavy with an unseen presence. Thunder rolled along the hills, echoing through the ancient stone, and somewhere deep within the house, the lamps flickered as if the light had begun to fear the dark. Elena stood before the library window, watching the storm. Her reflection looked like a ghost trapped behind glass. She had not slept since Liam's awakening. The image of his glowing eyes haunted her, the sound of Adrian's words still clinging to her like frost. By nightfall, we fight. But now there was only silence. Adrian had vanished at dusk, leaving behind a single sealed envelope on her bedside table. The script upon it, precise, almost elegant, bore her name. "If I do not return, do not follow. Guard the boy. A." She'd torn it open hours ago, read it until the words blurred with anger. And then she'd followed anyway. The east wing had always been locked. Tonight, the door stood ajar. Candles burned along the walls, their flames trembling as though in anticipation. She descended the marble stairs, following the sound of voices, a low, inhuman chorus rising from the crypt beneath the manor. She reached the iron doors at the bottom, half open, spilling a cold light into the passage. Beyond them lay a chamber carved into the earth itself. Stone pillars, carved with sigils that writhed when touched by shadow. At the center, Adrian knelt before a circle of ghostly figures, their forms little more than silhouettes of smoke and bone. The Vampiric Council. Their leader, an ageless woman with eyes like coals in a dying fire, regarded him from her spectral throne. Her voice was calm, melodic, and terrible. Adrian Vale of the Eastern House. You are summoned to answer for your transgression. The creation of a mortal heir. The corruption of pure blood. I have no defense, Adrian said, head bowed. Only truth. Truth, the woman mused. You call it love. He met her gaze. Call it what you will. I will not destroy the child. The chamber filled with a sound like wind and knives. Another voice, male, harsh, spoke next. Then the punishment is clear. The boy dies. The woman dies. You, Adrian Vale, will bear witness as we cleanse your sin. Elena's heart lurched. She stepped into the light before she could think, voice breaking the ritual silence. No. Every shadow turned. Adrian rose instantly, faster than human eyes could follow, placing himself between her and the council. Elena, what have you done? He hissed. I came for the truth, she said, breathless. And I heard it. The council leader's smile curved like a knife. Ah. The mortal dares to stand among us. She is under my protection, Adrian said. Your protection, the leader echoed. Or your weakness. Adrian's eyes flared crimson. Say what you will, but if you touch her, you will do nothing, the woman interrupted. You forget your place, half-breed lord. The decree is final. Destroy the child or be hunted unto the end of your unlife. Her hand rose, and from the surrounding shadows came a rustle of wings, the scent of decay, the promise of violence. Elena's voice cut through the growing chaos. His not a curse. His your salvation. The council stilled. Human folly, one of them sneered. You know nothing of our kind. I know enough, she said, stepping forward. You hide in darkness, bound by laws older than memory, terrified of what you cannot control. But the child, Liam, is both of you. Flesh and fire. If he can exist, then maybe your kind still has a place in the light. Her words echoed like the tolling of a bell. Adrian looked at her, not in anger, but in awe. There was strength in her voice that he had forgotten existed in mortals. The leader's expression hardened. You dare lecture immortality. I dare protect my family. The woman's eyes burned brighter. Then you will share their fate. The shadows lunged. Adrian's power erupted in a torrent of lightless energy, throwing her back. The ground trembled as the chamber shuddered under his unleashed fury. He seized Elena, vanishing from the crypt in a blur of motion. When they reappeared, it was in the great hall above, her heart pounding, his body trembling with exhaustion. They will come now, he said, voice breaking. You've doomed us both. I couldn't let them take you, she whispered. He laughed softly, bitterly. And I couldn't let them take you. They stood there in the flickering lamplight, two creatures bound by defiance and something deeper. Then, as thunder cracked overhead, he reached for her, hesitant, desperate, and kissed her. It wasn't the hunger of before, it was something raw, unrestrained. Centuries of restraint collapsing into one breath. His hands trembled against her skin, and for the first time, he tasted life rather than blood. When he pulled back, his voice was hoarse. I am damned. So am I, she said, and kissed him again. The storm broke at midnight. Fog rolled down from the mountains, thick as wool, swallowing the valley. Vale Manor vanished behind a wall of grey, the air alive with a low hum, ancient wards awakening under strain. Elena stood beside Adrian at the window, watching as lights flickered beyond the mist. Dozens, hundreds, moving fast. They're here, she said. Yes. Adrian's tone was calm, but his eyes had gone cold. The council's executioners. He turned to her. Take Liam to the cellar. Don't open the door for anyone unless it's me. I won't hide, she said. You must. He's the future, our only chance. If I fall, you run. Don't say that. But he was already gone, a shadow melting into the fog. Minutes later, the manor erupted in chaos. Shattered glass rained down from the upper floors as the first wave struck, figures cloaked in mist, their eyes burning red, their fangs gleaming in flashes of lightning. The servants, bound to Adrian by oath, rose to fight with uncanny discipline. Steel clashed with shrieks, silver burned through the air. Elena barred the cellar door behind Liam. The child's eyes glowed faintly, his fear barely contained. "Is he going to die?" he whispered. "No," she said fiercely. "He won't." But her words were a prayer, not a promise. She turned to the old weapons rack beside the stairwell. Dust-covered relics from forgotten wars, swords, daggers, a single silver candlestick still stained from the night of the emissary's death. She took it, its weight comforting in her hand. Then she heard it, footsteps above, slow and deliberate. Not Adrian's. The cellar door splintered inward. A tall figure stepped through, his skin pale as bone, his lips slick with crimson. His voice was smooth, almost kind. "The child," he said. "Give him to me and die quickly." Elena's grip tightened. "You'll have to come through me." The vampire smiled. "So be it." He lunged, impossibly fast, but this time, she was faster. The world slowed. Instinct, not human, took over. She sidestepped, drove the candlestick into his throat. Silver sizzled against flesh, a scream tearing the air. She wrenched it free and struck again, pure fury guiding her hands. When he fell, the fog that clung to him dissolved into nothing. Elena stared at the corpse, chest heaving. Blood stained her gown, her hands, her thoughts. She felt alive, terrifyingly alive. Liam's voice broke the silence. "You're glowing." She looked down. Her veins pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a silver shimmer where once there had been blue. The bond Adrian's blood was awakening. Above them, the ceiling shook. Dust fell. The war raged closer. Outside, Adrian was a storm unto himself. He moved through the fog like a shadow given purpose, his sword black steel forged before history, cutting through his enemies with ruthless grace. Yet for every creature he felled, two more took its place. The council's power was endless. He caught sight of their leader hovering above the battlefield, her eyes aflame. "You fight for a false dream, Adrian Vale," she called. "No mortal can redeem us." "Perhaps not," he said. "But she already has." He leapt impossibly high, meeting her in midair. Their clash shattered the night, two immortals tearing the heavens open. Thunder cracked like breaking bones. The rain turned red. Below, Elena fought her way up from the cellar, determined to reach him. The corridors were choked with smoke and blood, walls aflame. The manor itself groaned as if alive, its spirit straining against destruction. Every shadow seemed to whisper her name. When she reached the grand hall, she found him kneeling, impaled upon a silver blade driven through his chest. The council leader stood over him, smiling faintly. "It ends, child of night," she said. Elena's scream tore from her throat. She ran forward, but the leader turned her gaze upon her, and the world froze. Her limbs refused to obey. The vampires will pressed down on her like an invisible hand. Adrian's voice came weakly, but steady. "Run." "No," she cried. The leader twisted the blade. Adrian gasped, dark ichor spilling down his shirt. "For centuries you defied us," she said. "Now you will watch your mortal die as punishment." But Liam's voice broke through the chaos, a cry from behind them, clear and pure as sunlight. "Let them go." The hall filled with blinding light. The boy stood at the threshold, eyes burning gold, light pouring from his hands. The air itself screamed. The council soldiers shrieked, turning to ash in the radiance. The leader recoiled, shielding her face. "What is this power?" she hissed. "The bridge," Adrian whispered. "The end of your darkness." Liam's light flared again, and the leader vanished into dust. The silver blade liquefied, falling from Adrian's chest. The storm outside died with her. Elena ran to him, catching him as he fell. His skin was pale, his breath shallow. "Stay with me," she pleaded. "Please." He smiled faintly, his hand brushing her face. "You see, Elena. I was wrong. Don't talk. I thought love was a curse. His voice was barely a whisper now. But it's the only thing that makes us more than monsters. Tears fell onto his chest, mingling with the blood. You're not dying here, she said. Then save me as you did before, he murmured. She understood. Without hesitation, she drew a knife from her belt, sliced her palm, and pressed it to his lips. Drink. He hesitated. You'll lose yourself. Then I'll find you there. His fangs pierced her skin again, gentle this time, almost a kiss. She felt her life pour into him, warmth flowing into cold. The light around them dimmed. The fire roared. And then she felt it, his heart, long silent, beating once, twice, in time with hers. When he opened his eyes, they glowed silver again, but softer, filled with something the centuries had not erased. He sat up, the wound gone. She fell against him, weak but alive. Outside, the fog began to lift, revealing dawn breaking over the moors. The siege was over. In the ruins of the hall, Liam approached, his small face streaked with ash but his eyes shining. Did we win? Adrian looked at him, then at Elena. No, he said. We survived. That's better. The three of them stood together amid the wreckage, man, woman, and child bound by blood, light, and the terrible beauty of what they had endured. As the first sunlight touched the shattered windows, Adrian reached for Elena's hand. Smoke rose from his skin, but he did not pull away. Let it burn, he whispered. For once, I'd like to feel the morning. And together, they watched the dawn claim the sky. The cellar beneath Vale Manor was a tomb of secrets. Long after the dawn had burned the fog away, the fires above still smoldered, throwing ghostly light through the cracks in the stone ceiling. Elena dragged Adrian's unconscious body through the smoke, her hands slick with his blood, what was left of it. He was heavy as death and cold as the grave. Don't you dare, she whispered through her tears. Don't you dare leave me now. Liam followed, silent and pale. The boy's golden eyes flickered faintly as he knelt beside them. He's not gone, he said. I can still feel him. Elena found the old crypt hidden behind a wall of broken shelves, an arched chamber lined with marble coffins. The air shimmered faintly, thick with centuries of unspoken things. She laid Adrian down upon a stone bier and pressed her trembling hand to his chest. No heartbeat. No breath. Only the faint shimmer of power pulsing beneath his skin like the last ember of a dying star. Please, she whispered. Come back. Her voice echoed. There was no answer. In desperation, she did the only thing she could. She pulled a dagger from her belt, drew it across her palm, and let her blood drip onto his lips. You once told me my blood bound us, she said. Then let it bind you back to me. The crimson drops fell onto his mouth, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, his hand shot up and caught her wrist. His eyes flew open, silver and blazing. He gasped, the sound sharp and alive, like air breaking into long-starved lungs. Elena, his voice was raw, unfamiliar. She fell against him in relief, sobbing, her tears staining his shirt. You fool, she said. You promised you'd come back. He held her, weak but breathing, his hand brushing her hair. I couldn't feel anything, until you called me. I didn't call you, she murmured. I begged. He smiled faintly, and the expression, small, real, broke her heart in new ways. Then I heard you. Hours later, when the house lay still again, Adrian stirred beside the flickering candlelight. He sat upright slowly, wincing as the faint shimmer of pain crossed his features. The silver wound upon his chest was gone, replaced by a faint scar that pulsed with her heartbeat's rhythm. He looked at her, curled beside him, exhausted, her hair damp from tears and smoke. For a long moment, he said nothing. He remembered the last time he'd loved a mortal woman centuries ago, one who bore the same bloodline as the child sleeping upstairs. Her betrayal had damned him to endless years of solitude. He had vowed never again to let humanity touch his heart. And yet, here she was. He reached out, brushing her cheek lightly. Her pulse leapt beneath his fingertips. She stirred, eyes opening, and caught his hand. Don't look at me like that, she said softly. Like what? Like you've already lost me. He said nothing. She sat up, the candlelight painting her face gold. Tell me the truth, Adrian. What really happened between you and Liam's mother? He hesitated, the shadows deepening around them. She was mortal. Like you. Her name was Celeste Vale, though she wasn't born a Vale. I loved her once, and she betrayed me. Betrayed you how? She made a pact with the council. Promised them my bloodline in exchange for her child's safety. I spared her life when I discovered it. I thought mercy would redeem us both. Instead, she died protecting the child from them years later. He looked away. Perhaps mercy was the greater cruelty. Elena was silent for a long time. Then she said, "And now you think history will repeat itself. Doesn't it always?" he murmured. She reached for him, fingers tracing the faint scar on his chest. "Maybe not this time." He caught her hand, his grip firm but tender. "You call me a monster," he said quietly. "But you're the one who made me human again." The words struck her like a blow. She tried to speak, but he leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. For a heartbeat, everything else fell away, the smoke, the ruin, the world itself. There was only the steady rhythm of two breaths mingling, and the fragile peace between them. Outside, the first rays of dawn slipped through the broken glass above the crypt. Adrian flinched but did not move away. The light kissed his skin and smoked faintly, but he let it burn, eyes locked on hers. "Why?" she whispered. "Because I want to remember what warmth feels like," he said. "And you're the only warmth I have left." They emerged from the crypt at twilight. The manor stood in ruin, its once proud halls reduced to ash and silence. The surviving servants bowed as Adrian passed, some wept openly, others crossed themselves in fear. Liam waited by the staircase, pale but alive. When he saw them, he ran forward, throwing his arms around Elena. "You came back," he said. "Always," she whispered, holding him close. Adrian watched, a faint, unreadable smile on his lips. "He grows stronger every hour." "Stronger," she repeated. He nodded. The power he released during the siege was only the beginning. It burns in him now, light and shadow in balance. He is the bridge between what was and what must come. Elena glanced at the boy, who stared out the cracked window at the dying sun. "What happens when the world learns about him?" "They will fear him," Adrian said simply. "And then they will come for him again. Then we'll be ready." He turned to her, brow raised. "You speak as if you intend to stay." "I've already chosen my side," she said. "And it isn't the one hiding from the dawn." For the first time in centuries, Adrian laughed, a low, startled sound, half joy, half disbelief. "You are remarkable," he said. "And ruinous." "Then we're both damned," she replied, taking his hand. "At least we'll have company." The faintest trace of warmth lingered in his palm. For once, it didn't fade. The storm had passed, but the sky still bore its scars. Smoke coiled from the blackened towers of Vale Manor, rising like ghosts toward the pale morning. Elena stood at the edge of the courtyard, her dress torn and stained with soot, watching the first rays of sunlight creep over the horizon. Behind her, the air hummed faintly, Liam's power stirring again. Adrian joined her silently. His coat was scorched, his skin still healing, but his eyes, those silver eyes, shone clear and steady. "They'll come again," he said. "The council may have fallen, but others will rise. There are older creatures still who despise the light." "Then let them come," she said. "We've beaten them once." He looked at her. "You think this victory means we are free. But every dawn carries its own darkness." She turned to him, brushing a streak of ash from his cheek. "So does every heart." His gaze softened. "You should rest." "I can't." "Not yet." "Because you fear what comes next." "Because I don't want to wake up and find this was all just another dream." He smiled faintly, stepping closer. "If it were, I would never let you wake." Before she could respond, the ground beneath them trembled, a low, resonant hum that grew to a roar. The air split with light, and from the forest beyond the manor came a figure cloaked in white fire. Liam gasped. "It's her again," he whispered. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "No. It's worse." The figure stepped into view, its face hidden behind a golden mask. When it spoke, Its voice was neither male nor female but something vast and inhuman. The council is gone. The balance is broken. The child's power threatens both realms. Adrian moved instinctively, placing himself between Elena and the entity. You have no authority here. I am the keeper of the boundary, the figure said. You have undone centuries of order. The bridge must be sealed. Elena stepped forward. You mean killed? Purified, the being corrected. No mortal should wield eternity. Liam clung to her skirt, trembling. She felt his heartbeat, fierce, alive, human. You'll have to go through me, she said. The keeper raised a hand, and the air burned white-hot. Adrian lunged, intercepting the blast of light that followed. It struck him full in the chest. He staggered, smoke rising from his skin. Run, he shouted. But Elena didn't run. She seized a fallen blade from the ground, a relic forged in silver and shadow, and hurled herself toward the keeper. The creature caught the weapon in midair, but the blade flared with Liam's light, searing its hand. For the first time, it recoiled. Adrian's voice rang through the chaos. Liam, now! The boy's eyes ignited, the same gold fire bursting from his hands. The energy tore through the courtyard, colliding with the keeper's light in a storm of radiance and shadow. The force threw Elena backward, her vision swallowed by brilliance. When the light cleared, the keeper was gone. Only the ruins of the manor remained, and Adrian, kneeling in the ashes, his body smoking. She crawled to him, blood streaking her face. No, she whispered. Not again. He smiled faintly. It's done. He's safe. You can't, her words broke. You can't leave us. He cupped her face with trembling hands. You taught me how to die for something pure, he said. Don't let that be wasted. Tears fell onto his lips. I won't. Then live, he whispered. The light faded from his eyes. His body crumbled to ash in her arms. The dawn came slowly, painting the ruins gold. Elena knelt there, silent, the wind tugging at her hair. Liam stood beside her, tears glinting like sunlight. He's gone, the boy said softly. No, she replied, her voice trembling but steady. He's here. In you. In me. She looked toward the horizon. The sun had risen fully now, and for the first time in her life, she didn't flinch from it. Days passed. The manor was rebuilt piece by piece, though its scars remained. The servants returned, the walls once again held laughter and light. Liam grew stronger, learning to control the strange gift within him. Elena guided him, teaching him not only to survive but to be kind, to remember what Adrian had fought for. One morning, she woke to the sound of footsteps in the courtyard. She rose, wrapped in her shawl, and stepped outside. A figure stood in the rain, tall, pale, his eyes faintly silver. Her breath caught. Adrian. He smiled, softly, impossibly real. Did you think I would stay gone? Monsters are hard to kill. She ran to him, and when he caught her in his arms, she felt warmth where once there had been none. The rain no longer avoided him, it clung to his hair, to his skin, alive. They stood together beneath the dawn, and for the first time since the world began, he let the sunlight touch him. The world outside Vale Manor had turned indifferent to time. Fog clung to the hills like memory, and the forest around the estate grew thicker, almost protective, as if nature itself wished to shield what had been born within its shadows. It had been weeks since the fire. The ruins had been rebuilt, stone by stone, under the soft persistence of rain. Now the great hall glowed once more with candlelight, its silence broken only by the faint crackle of the hearth. Elena stood by the window, watching the pale figure in the courtyard. Adrian moved among the roses that had somehow survived the flames, his hand brushing over petals still slick with dew. Though his skin remained translucent, and the veins beneath it shone faintly silver, there was something human in his bearing now, something she had never seen before. He could stand in the daylight. Not for long, not without pain, but he stood beneath it, defying every law that had bound him for centuries. When he caught her watching, he smiled faintly, as if reading her thoughts. It doesn't burn like it used to, he said. It warms. Elena stepped down to join him, her skirts brushing the wet grass. Then you're healing. Or changing, he murmured. Perhaps both. She studied him, the way the sunlight shimmered faintly against his skin, how his reflection now flickered, unstable but real. "And Liam?" she asked. He looked toward the manor's doorway, where the boy stood, bright-eyed and silent. "He dreams differently now," Adrian said. "He sees things before they happen. The bridge between worlds doesn't sleep quietly." Elena's hand tightened on his arm. "Will he stay human?" "No," Adrian said simply. "But he will be something far greater." The dawn made him part of both worlds, yet bound to neither. She felt a chill, though the morning was mild. "And what will the world do when it finds him?" "They will fear him," Adrian said, repeating his old words. Then his gaze softened. "But this time, they will have to go through both of us." Later, when the day waned into violet dusk, they gathered in the great hall. Liam sat cross-legged by the fire, studying the flicker of flame as though reading from it. Adrian poured from a decanter of crimson liquid, still, always, and handed a cup to Elena. She hesitated. "That isn't blood." He smiled, amused. "No. Wine. From the cellar. Even immortality has its habits." She took the glass, the warmth of it grounding her. "You never told me how you came back." "I didn't," he said. "Not truly. The flames took everything. I was ash. But your blood called me again, just as it did before. You carried a trace of me when you saved me in the crypt. When you wept for me in the courtyard, it answered. So you rose because of me." He inclined his head. "Because of you, and because of him." He nodded toward Liam. "The boy's light anchors me. It refuses to let me fade. I am tied now, to both of you." Elena felt her throat tighten. "So what are you now?" Adrian looked into the fire. "Not vampire. Not mortal. Something in between, a consequence of your defiance and his gift." "And me?" she asked quietly. He met her gaze. "You've changed too, Elena Ward. Your blood carries mine. You are no longer entirely human either." She froze. "What does that mean?" "It means you'll live longer than any mortal should," he said gently. "You'll feel things more deeply, sense what others cannot. You're part of this bloodline now, whether you wished it or not." The silence stretched between them until Liam broke it, his young voice clear and certain. "Then we're a family." Both adults turned to look at him. His eyes glowed faintly with inner gold, and for a moment, Elena could almost see the light within him ripple like the dawn itself. Adrian knelt, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Yes," he said. "We are." In the following weeks, the manor took on a new rhythm. Adrian began to venture out in daylight for brief moments, testing his limits. The servants whispered that the master had conquered death itself. The locals, those few who dared come near the estate, spoke of seeing strange lights in the forest at night, and a child who shone like the sun when he laughed. Liam's abilities grew stronger. He could sense the presence of others long before they arrived. Once, he reached out and touched a dying rose, and the petals bloomed anew. "It's beautiful," Elena told him. "It's dangerous," Adrian countered. "Such power draws attention." "Then we'll teach him control," she said. "Not fear." Adrian's gaze lingered on her, pride and apprehension intertwined. "You sound like someone who was born to command monsters." "Maybe I was," she said, her lips curving faintly. "Or maybe I just fell in love with one." The words hung between them like the moment before thunder. Adrian stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Say that again," he murmured. "I said." She never finished. He kissed her. It was nothing like the blood-bound hunger of their first encounter. This was slow, deliberate, centuries of restraint breaking with the gentleness of dawn. His mouth was cool, hers warm, and together they met somewhere between the two worlds that had shaped them. She felt his hand slide into her hair, his breath catch his heart, still slow but present, echoing faintly against her chest. When they finally broke apart, the world seemed quieter. "You burn," she whispered, brushing her thumb against his cheek. The sunlight had reached them through the tall windows, and it shimmered against his skin. "I burn," he said, smiling faintly. "But I no longer turn to ash." Outside, the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon. For the first time in centuries, The master of Vale Manor stood in its light and did not flee from it. They made their vow that morning, beneath the great oak by the courtyard gate. No ceremony, no witnesses but the wind. "We will protect him," Adrian said, placing his hand over Liam's. "Whatever comes." Elena laid her hand atop theirs. "Together," she said. Liam smiled. "Forever." And for a while, the world was quiet enough to believe them. But far beyond the forests of Vale, in the places where the sun had never reached, whispers began to stir again. The fall of the vampiric council had left a void, and power abhors emptiness. Something older, darker, and far less merciful was beginning to wake. In the shadows of forgotten catacombs, eyes opened, eyes that reflected neither light nor dark, but the cold hunger of the void. "They think they've escaped us," a voice hissed. "But the new bloodline carries both sin and salvation. We will find them." Years passed like pages in a book left open in the rain. The manor grew into legend. Travelers spoke of a distant estate hidden among storm-veiled hills, where time moved differently and the air shimmered with something ancient. Most dismissed it as rumor, a fireside tale whispered to children. Others swore they had seen it, tall spires rising through mist, windows glowing gold even when no lamps burned within. Within those walls, peace had taken root. Liam had grown no longer the frightened child clinging to Elena's skirts, but a youth with the bearing of something more than mortal. His eyes still caught the light like molten sunlight, and his laughter echoed through the once haunted corridors. The staff no longer feared him, they adored him. Flowers bloomed where he walked. Elena had changed too. She no longer aged as mortals did. Her reflection, when she dared look, showed faint traces of what Adrian called the silver mark, a subtle glow beneath her skin, a hint of immortality. She had not left the manor grounds in years, yet she did not miss the world beyond. Her world was here, Liam's laughter, Adrian's quiet presence, and the strange peace that followed the storm. Adrian himself had softened. He still carried the shadows in his eyes, but they no longer consumed him. He could walk beneath the morning light for nearly an hour before retreating indoors, and sometimes Elena caught him standing in the rain, face turned upward, as if testing what humanity still remained in him. One evening, as thunder rolled across the hills, Elena found him in the garden, his hands stained with soil. He was planting something, pale, ghostly flowers that shimmered even in the dark. "What are they?" she asked. "Moon lilies," he said. "They bloom only under the full moon. I thought, the night should have something beautiful too." She smiled. "You're learning to love the dark again." "I never stopped," he murmured. "It's where I found you." He stood, brushing the earth from his hands, and looked toward the manor where Liam's laughter carried faintly through the open windows. "He's almost grown," Adrian said softly. "One day he'll have to choose our world or theirs." "Or make his own," Elena said. "That's what bridges are for." He turned to her, eyes bright with quiet wonder. "You always see what I cannot." She reached up, touching his face. "That's because you taught me not to fear the things that don't belong to the light." He leaned in, kissed her gently, and for a moment, the storm seemed to pause. When the danger finally came, it was not with armies or fire, but whispers carried on the wind. Old forces stirred again, the remnants of the dark, jealous of what Adrian and Elena had built. There were rumors in distant towns, of a pale lord, a mortal woman, and a child with eyes like sunlight. Some called them a miracle. Others, a blasphemy. Elena's voice, soft and steady, began the final words of their story. "The world feared monsters. I fell in love with one, and together, we made something worth fearing more, hope." Years later still, a traveler crossing the northern moors during a storm claimed to see the manor. He described a tall figure standing in the rain, hand entwined with a woman's. The man's silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but he did not shy away from the downpour. The rain fell freely upon him, soaking his pale hair, running down his face like tears, and he smiled. When asked what he saw, the traveler said, "A monster who looked at peace." And behind them, through the fog, a third figure appeared, a young man, his eyes bright as sunlight breaking through clouds. Together, they watched the storm pass. The rain no longer avoided him. The dawn no longer burned him. And the darkness no longer claimed him. In that quiet, eternal balance, The legend of Vale Manor endured neither mortal nor immortal, but something beautifully in between. If you felt the pull of the darkness and the light in Vale Manor, don't let the story end here. Subscribe and step deeper into the shadows with me. More tales of forbidden love, immortal secrets, and haunting beauty await. Leave a comment if you'd walk into the manor's gates yourself, and ring the bell so you never miss the next nightfall.